Welcome to today's Explainer. You know, when we think about historic royal palaces, or the Victorian era in general, our minds usually jump straight to the glittering luxury, right? The massive banquets, the gorgeous dresses, the stunning architecture. But today, we're going to completely shatter those romanticized illusions. We're diving into the gritty, absolutely exhausting truth of the lowest-ranking servant in the entire house, the scullery maid.
Just consider the extreme asymmetry of wealth and labor going on here. Up top, you have the royal household, which sometimes boasted over 1,300 domestic servants just to keep that opulent machine running smoothly. But down below, the entire glittering facade of these grand estates literally rested on the broken back of a teenage girl in the basement. Most scullery maids were, well, they were just kids, really, usually 13 to 16 years old, and they were plunging their hands into freezing water and lye soap for 16 hours a day.
All right, Section 1, bottom of the hierarchy.
To truly grasp what her life was like, we first have to understand exactly where she stood in that incredibly unforgiving Victorian class structure. You had the butler commanding the men, the housekeeper leading the women, the cook ruling the kitchen, and the kitchen maid right beneath the cook. And at the very, very bottom, the scullery maid. The crucial takeaway here is that she wasn't just at the bottom of the ladder, she existed entirely so that the ladder had a bottom. She was there to do the grueling work that literally no one else in that massive house would ever touch.
And if you want to know how society viewed her, just look at the household management manuals of the time. Isabella Beeton's famous book didn't call her a general worker or even an assistant. The literal explicit term they used was the general drudge. She wasn't seen as a person with ambitions or, feelings. She was viewed as a tool, an implement built for pure, unrelenting manual labor to ensure the pristine cleanliness required for all those elaborate meals upstairs.
Moving on to Section 2, Dawn of the Drudge. Try to imagine starting your day at 5 a.m. in the pitch black of winter. Our sources show us that it was completely standard for these girls to work 15 to 18 hours a day, 6.5 days a week. From the very second she woke up, she knew she had over a dozen hours of agonizing labor ahead of her before she could finally collapse back into bed around 11 p.m.
So her very first task of the day was tackling the Lamington cast iron range. Before the sun even thought about coming up, she was down there coaxing embers and applying black lead. Now, black lead was this highly toxic paste made of graphite and oil. She had to furiously scrub this into the iron and then literally pick it out of the decorative scrollwork with her bare fingernails. She'd be breathing in that metallic, choking smell that would permanently stain her hands, her apron, her hair, and even the back of her throat, every single day. 40 pounds. Take a second to wrap your head around that. That is the weight of a single pail of freezing January water. After she finished the fires, she had to haul water from an outside standpipe. She'd carry 2 of these pails at a time on a heavy wooden yoke, making 4 trips in total, just absolutely destroying her young shoulders. And all of this happened before 6 a.m. Oh, and the water was so cold it caused immediate, searing pain the second it touched her skin.
Which brings us to Section 3, Mountains of Washing Up. Once breakfast was over, the true nightmare of her day actually began, an endless avalanche of dirty cookware. She was essentially pinned inside a dark, damp, steamy basement room, which was often windowless or had terrible ventilation. For hours on end, she's breathing in the overwhelming stench of grease and kitchen waste, she's scrubbing the stone floors twice a week, and she's just endlessly working her way through mountains of pots and pans. And listen, scullery maids never touched the fine china, the crystal, or the silver. No way. Those were reserved for the upper servants. Instead, her job was violently scrubbing heavy copper, thick earthenware, and cast iron pots. To get them clean, she had to use highly abrasive fine sand, washing soda, and corrosive lye soap. It was a vicious chemical combination that would quite literally strip the skin right off her hands.
As you'd expect, the physical degradation was absolute. Medical observers from the era noted chronic skin inflammation and terrible infections from the open cracks on their hands. Their backs were completely ruined because the scullery sinks were built ridiculously low, designed to fit the awkward basement space, not the actual human being standing at them. And the household manuals? They noted that scullery work destroyed the back in the exact same casual tone you might note that rain is wet. There were no breaks, no relief periods. If she got too sick to work, she was immediately sent back to whatever poor village she came from, entirely unpaid and with zero medical treatment.
Let's pivot to Section 4, the psychological toll.
Beyond the physical torment, we really have to look at what this kind of profound isolation and degradation did to the mind of a young girl.
Sociologist Otto Pollock flawlessly captured this dynamic. He wrote, "To see what other people have and what she herself does not have can almost be called the essential job experience." It's such a powerful point. It highlights the intense daily psychological frustration generated by this extreme asymmetry of power and wealth. She had to watch these lavish, multi-course feasts being prepared for people who barely even acknowledged she existed, all while she barely survived on basic scraps and endless toil.
Honestly, to justify treating a human being this way, the system required total depersonalization. To her employers, she wasn't a complex person with a family and real dreams. She was deliberately stripped of her identity. Actually, they'd often just call her generic standardized names like Sissy or Cookie, completely ignoring her real name. The sources note that employers frequently viewed these girls as stupid or treated them like incompetent children, which of course just made the intense exploitation much easier to rationalize.
Finally, Section 5, the invisible labor.
So, after a 16-hour day of having her dignity stripped away and her body physically broken, what was her grand reward? Well, at 11 p.m., she retreated to drab, bare, small, and incredibly cheerless quarters. We're talking about a freezing, uncarpeted room, usually shoved in an attic or a damp basement, with a narrow, uncomfortable iron bed. They were even given the broken household items, chipped chamber pots and cracked water pitchers that weren't good enough for the main house anymore. She'd collapse there, only to have to wake up and do the whole shebang all over again just a few hours later.
And her paycheck for all of this? Between 5 and 18 pounds. That shockingly low number was her entire annual wage. It's a microscopic fraction of the immense wealth she spent every single waking hour maintaining. It was just enough to ensure her basic physical survival, but absolutely nothing more.
So the next time you admire the glittering luxury of a historic palace, or you're watching a grand banquet scene in a period drama, I want you to stop and ask yourself, who bled in the shadows to make all of that happen? It completely flips how you view history when you realize that all that opulence, all that pristine, perfect beauty, was bought and paid for with the invisible, agonizing labor of a teenage general drudge. That wraps up our explainer for today. Keep questioning the history you see, and I'll catch you in the next one.